The Nuggets get the win versus the Golden State Warriors, now 2-0 versus the Dubs this season, though they were shorthanded. Great minutes from Vlatko Cancar and Christian Braun. We'll talk about the impacts of that game, plus the ongoing Bones drama and whether this is the end of the very short-lived Bones era in Denver. This is Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver source for all things Nuggets on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for joining us and making us part of your day. Appreciate you guys being with us and making this your first listen. We're available on all platforms, including YouTube, where you can join the show and join all sorts of folks who've been hanging out with us while Adam set up his new mic, which he's very excited about, and I'm very excited.
Sounds so great. Listen to me, guys. So clear.
The dulcet tones of Adam Mares. Today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. That's PrizePicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. We're also brought to you today by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. On today's show, we're going to talk about the win over the Warriors and how the Nuggets were able to pace themselves to get distance in the third quarter, about the quality of the win. That was set up well for them, but still there were some things about that game I found pretty encouraging from a Nuggets standpoint in a season full of encouraging things. We'll talk about the Jamal Murray comments after the game about various players fitting into roles and about the Bones Hyland situation and the corollaries there and how much it's related or not. And we'll talk about some of the trade stuff as well. We begin with the win over the Golden State Warriors on Thursday night. I was not at the arena, was not feeling awesome, so I went ahead and stayed back. Adam, however, was at the arena. Adam, what was it like to be in the building for a matchup where Steph Curry on a back-to-back decided to give it a go?
It was actually really nice to be at the arena and to see this one. Obviously, I'm in studio more often than at the arena these days, but it was nice to be there. I thought Denver looked really good. This is an interesting game to analyze because you have to factor in that Warriors did not have Klay Thompson or Draymond Green, a significant portion of their team, and that they were on the second night of a back-to-back. Denver, there was a great statistic I saw thrown out yesterday that, you know, the Warriors in this era had never lost when they shot 50% from the field and 50% from three. They were on fire, making 19 of 38 of their three-point attempts. I mean, 19 three-point attempts is a lot just to begin with, but on 50% efficiency is big. And yet it was a blowout. And it was a blowout because of how well Denver's offense looked, especially that starting lineup where they just scored at will every single time and looked as connected as they had all year. So for me, it was fun to be there. And I thought it was a pretty impressive game, even factoring in all the variables.
I listened to the Warriors broadcast. I rewatched this morning. I did watch the game and just decided to not be on Twitter last night. And listening to the Warriors broadcast was really interesting because there's so much appreciation for this team right now from other squads. Like Fitz is on there being like, you know, the Nuggets, like they just have started to figure out the holes in the Warriors defense and they just keep coming. And that's kind of like how I felt too, which is you can keep pace for a while. You need your A game to beat Denver in Denver almost always.
Right.
I don't think Denver needs their A game to beat you in Denver. I think that if you're an opponent, almost every team in the league is going to need their A game to beat Denver in Denver. The Warriors are not the same without Draymond and Klay. That's a pretty obvious statement. What I will say is that the style of play that the Warriors play gives them a chance versus a lot of opponents who aren't prepared for that. And that what I saw last night was the most prepared any team has ever been from Denver to take on the Warriors stylistically. They were prepared on both ends of the floor. After I thought the first half of their defense was really bad, I felt like the way that they're able to switch, match up, cut, move, keep challenge switches, take advantage of gaps in the defense, all of that bodes very well for a potential matchup. It just made me more encouraged about the stylistic and tactical matchup that this might present in a potential playoff series. You disagree?
Denver had a 116 defensive rating last night, which I think is right at the line of what you could probably beat Golden State in. Like if you had a 116 defensive rating in the playoffs, that's like 55% you're going to win. It's not a slam dunk. The thing is that Denver just scored on them so easily So the question is, does Draymond Green lower Denver's offensive output below 116? Because I don't think he's going to raise their offensive output from what we got last night. I know Clay can be there, this or that. They made a lot of threes last night. They scored. They did some things that were some outlier stuff. The question is, does Draymond help you defensively enough against Jokic in particular to lower it there? And I don't know. So I'm with you that I think Denver, and I saw somebody in the chat say, I want to get matched up with Golden State in the playoffs. I kind of do too, from a narrative standpoint, not in the first round. That's the fear. But I just do love it from the idea of like, you want to dethrone the champs, like in your ascent. So I want that as well. But to say that I feel confident coming out of last night's game that, oh, they have Golden State figured out, I can't say that until I see him go up against Draymond.
Steve Wynn says this, and this is what a couple of folks that I talk to regularly commented on. The Warriors went nuclear from 3 in the first half, and they still trailed. The fact that Denver was able to get a lead at halftime, I was like, wow. Like, it's just, again, the floor for Denver is so high, and the ceiling is so high. Yep. It's rare that you have teams that are both. Like, this is a special team. And I don't mean to overstate how good Denver is after a win where the Warriors were on a back-to-back after an overtime game without Clay and Draymond. I'm not trying to overstate that. The reason I just bring it up is the Warriors still really kind of like the fact that Steph played is indicative of where the Warriors are this season, which is like,
so
they got
true.
to play with a little bit of urgency.
So true. Like it was hilarious when I saw that he was active last night. I was kind of like, man, they are really hanging by a thread.
Yeah. And Draymond was a late scratch. He was supposed to play, and then the calf tightened up. So that was rough, but they still I thought Kuminga played really well, especially hitting 2 threes. That's big for them, being able to stretch the floor with him.
I think he was 6 of 6 to start the game from all over the court. Like, he was making all kinds of stuff.
I like him a lot. Jordan Poole chipped in 22 on 8 of 15 shooting. Not the nuclear kind of games we've seen him have sometimes, but a pretty good outcome. They got some bench scoring from Wiseman and Ty Jerome. Wiggins didn't have a good game. One thing I will say is there's a couple of players that stood out outside of Jokic, who I don't know if you know this, but Jokic is very good. Without Aaron Gordon, needs to be noted, the Nuggets were without Aaron Gordon. Jamal, I thought, had exceptional patience in this game and a good mindset of how to attack Golden State. There was not a casualness to the possessions. He didn't let them off the hook. He put real pressure on them. There was one where he caught it, kind of hesitated, and then took like a pull-up 3. For the most part, I felt like Jamal was, one, really good in attacking the basket to put just like – the Warriors want to put you in situations to make those plays. Like, they try and find your leverage points to be like, you're going to have to do this. And I thought that Jamal did a really good job of attacking those pressure points specifically.
He was fantastic, I thought, in this game. After the game, Michael Malone mentioned that he likes when Jamal lets it fly, meaning just he's more aggressive and he's ready to shoot and all of those different things. He took 11 threes in this game. And Malone had some stat. I don't remember what it was off the top of my head, but something about when Jamal takes 10 or more threes, we win. And I do think there's something to that. He didn't even shoot well. 3 of 11 is not even shooting that well from 3. But there is something to just the willingness that opens everything else up. So to me, the biggest difference right now with the Nuggets is Jamal Murray is looking like his old self more often than not right now. And even looking like his old self more consistently than I think he typically does, even pre-injury. And I think that's the most encouraging thing for Denver.
Let me get your thoughts on it, and then I'll give mine. What did you see from MPJ last night?
I thought he was good. The ball doesn't always find him, and that's a thing consistently, but he knocked down the shots when they came to him. 5 of 9 from 3 is so much more important than anything else that he's going to be doing out there. And, Denver's offensive efficiency when he was on the court was absolutely absurd. He had a 154 offensive rating last night. When he was on the court, the Nuggets scored almost a point and a half, over a point and a half every time down court. That's absurd.
Yeah, it was interesting. I tried, like, there were some sequences where the Warriors, this is another game where the opponent tried to really hone in on MPJ. Like, they tried, let's force a switch and get MPJ on Poole, and then Poole attacks MPJ. And like, that's a tough matchup for anybody.
For anyone. Poole's so quick. Seeing him in person, man, is like, it stands out even more. You're like,
he's a firebug. I thought that MPJ, though, it's just like the overall level of competency is so much higher than it was 2 years ago, where it's like, even if I don't really care about MPJ having like, oh, he got beat by Jordan Poole. I don't care about like, oh, he missed one, he was a step late on a closeout and the guy was able to get to his left. Whatever it is. It's just don't be so lost that your teammates are looking at you like, what are you doing? Yeah. And that just doesn't happen anymore. And you can tell that a lot of the tension that you and I have honed in on through the years with not just Nikola, but with the other starters with MPJ in the situations, that's dissipated because they're just like, yeah, no, Mike knows his job. Mike knows his job. Mike does his job. We'll get this. Like, it's fine. Because one of the things I think is always interesting is the reaction from other players when a guy scores or if there's a breakdown about whether or not they're like, what are you doing? Or if they're just like, that happens, or if they're like, no, that was my bad. Right. Like those kind of interactions, I think, tell you a lot. And so it was interesting to see.
I will say this, the Nuggets playoff success, I do think largely comes down to how effective it is to put Porter in those situations. And there is optimism both around the team, but I think also just kind of watching it, there's reason for optimism that is no longer as viable an option as a strategy as it was in seasons prior.
I was thinking about this too. Chorg says this in the comments. I love how teams are going at MPJ. It gives it as much practice as we can get to the playoffs. 100%.
I wish they want to get some more, to be honest.
Yeah, he's literally like, you can tell that he's like, okay, like if you're going to go at me, let's go. All right. He's up for the challenge, and that's good to see. Let's take a break. We'll come back and we'll talk about the guys that filled in last night, including Vlatko Cancar. Christian Braun gets minutes and some more stuff from the Warriors game. We'll get to that when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. But we start our ad reads today. We talk about LinkedIn jobs. As a small business owner or hiring manager, you know that success in 2023 depends on the team members you surround yourself with. That's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates more efficiently by matching open roles with people who have the skills, values, and experiences to help you achieve your goals. All of those things really matter when you're doing a hiring. I can't stress that enough, that you need to find not only the skill set, but the values and experiences as well. LinkedIn Jobs helps you quickly attract qualified candidates to your jobs with targeting tools. They go beyond resume data by using insights from your job post company and their 875 million member profiles to put your post in front of the most qualified candidates. LinkedIn Jobs makes it easy to screen and rate applicants based on your job qualifications, all on one platform. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. When you're looking at trade options, you can best tell that the Nuggets are not just looking for guys that have the requisite skills, but who fit with their locker room culture. You need to be able to do the same, and that's why you got to use LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. We're also brought to you today by FanDuel Sportsbook. This year, the only app you need at your Super Bowl party is FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they're the #1 sportsbook in America, FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They've got so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. Download FanDuel now so you can bet Super Bowl 57 with a no-sweat first bet. You'll get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. FanDuel lets you bet on everything from money line to point spreads to who will score a touchdown. Eagles get off to really fast starts. I think there's a very good chance that the Eagles are up at half in this one. So I think that there's probably some value to be found on the Eagles on the money line for the first half. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is safe, secure, and super easy to use. Best of all, you can get paid your winnings instantly. FanDuel, there's a lot of things I love about FanDuel. I'm on it all the time as a guy that works at Action. Like FanDuel is an app that I use a ton. One of the best ones, you can parlay awards for the NBA. That's a really great strategy because you can just increase the value if you feel like you've got a lock on who's going to win these things, and then take some shots, and you can also round robin them. So even if you get one wrong, you're still pairing these up. So you can bet Nikola at a lower number now because of the MVP buzz that Embiid got for about another 4 days. Like you could do that and get some good value there. Pair it with Jaren Jackson Jr. Pair it with Paolo Banchero and get some more value on that. Join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/LockedOn to claim your no sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us and making us part of your day. I'm not going to share it, but Hurricane just made me lose my complete train of thought with a comment in the section.
That was a good one.
That was a really good one. All right, so let's talk some more about the game. So Vlatko starts in this game with Aaron Gordon out. I want to. There's something about Vlatko. You've always been high on him, and I liked him a lot when I saw him in summer league. But then, like when we saw him in regular season, I was like, yeah, maybe he's not an NBA guy. One thing I think, and this has been kind of commented by people, which is you've said this a lot, which is you're like, Vlatko's been here. Like he's not a rookie. He's not a second year guy. He's like the third longest tenured Nugget. But part of what
that's a good question. Who has been here longer than him? Jokic, Murray.
That's it.
He's the third longest tenured Nugget.
Yeah.
By a long shot, by a wide margin.
Yeah. And so
Michael Porter might.
No, I think Vlatko was before. I think they were same time.
Five seasons for MPJ because he had the rookie gap year, which is basically what Vlatko's had.
So
Vlatko's only 4, so MPJ has been here longer.
So part of what comes with this is that just the process of playing NBA basketball in practice and shoot arounds and working on individual development over time, like there's that natural improvement, but because we don't see him in games, we're not able to kind of factor that in. And like, I know you've identified it. I'm just saying.
No. That's not it. I was saying that I'm with you. Like, I didn't think he was a player his early years. I think he grew into a player over the last couple. And he has even mentioned this. And this is, I think, very true, but also an interesting insight. He was asked about like his growth as a player. And he said he really learned it sitting on the bench. Like he's learned the style from watching it. And I think that's such an interesting insight because you think we always say like, you got to play it. Bones has to play through this or so-and-so has to play through this. And I think that's true for most players, but there is something too, like some players can just learn from watching the game.
Yeah. A lot of, I think the rotation stuff gets into the question of what's the default, right? So I think where the Nuggets are kind of at is Zeke's the backup center. If there's a specific situation that calls for DeAndre, they'll try and see if it will work. Like,
when was the last time we saw DeAndre?
Was
that what it was?
That was the last time he played meaningful.
A while,
I think.
I'm curious to see when he gets his next regular minutes, meaning like second quarter or whatever minutes. I'm curious. He might.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a while, and it should be like my whole thing was like
Milwaukee. He played Milwaukee.
Like I didn't think he was that bad, etc. But it was also just like, look, at some point the plus minus is what the plus minus is, and you got to go somewhere else. And the notion of you can't play DeAndre in the playoffs, so you need to try Zeke to find out. I think that's accurate as well. I don't know if we have an answer to that yet. What I will say with this is, I am also of the opinion that the flip needs to happen. And like I've talked about Jeff all year, as much as a veteran guy as I am, Jeff's going to continue to get these minutes, and I am in agreement with most of Nuggets Twitter on this, that like Vlatko should get the Jeff minutes and that Jeff should be the pull cord in case of emergency. Like, I think it's really good to have Jeff Green as the Winston Wolfe from Pulp Fiction. I'm Winston Wolfe. I solve problems. Like there's a mess and Jeff Green comes in and is like, okay, we've lost 2 players to injury, but Jeff Green comes in, hits a big 3, makes a couple of high profile plays and gets a dunk. Wow, what a great game. Like that's a good situation for Jeff. Playing Jeff every night instead of Vlatko, I don't think is a good solution because of what Vlatko has brought. Like Vlatko was pushing the ball in transition last night and making reads to get the Warriors in mid-transition out of comfort zones, creating open looks. He passes to Jamal Murray for an open 3. He helps cause all these deflections. Like there's too much. Vlatko's simple ability to move, his energy and what he brings to the table right now is simply higher. And I don't see why you would be more concerned about Vlatko Cancar with high effort than you would about Jeff Green, even in a playoff series, even with as much as I respect Jeff's experience and know-how.
This is the toughest question for me. I love Vlatko, and this conversation about better is almost misleading to me. It's more about what the team needs. I will say Jeff Green, I mean, his stat line last night is 0 points in 14 minutes, 0 of 3 with zeros all across the board, except for in the turnover column where he had 2. Like that's as bad as a stat line. Like forget the context of it. That's as bad a stat line as you could put together. If you only contributed turnovers and missed shots in your minutes, and then we're a minus 11 in a 20-point win, that's crazy. But that being said, to me, it's more about the fit. And Denver is going to have to rediscover this when and if the Bones trade happens about what it is that second unit needs the most. I suspect that the reason Jeff Green is such a consistent fixture, in addition to just he's a veteran, and I think Malone just trusts people that have been through it more than players that haven't. But my suspicion is that he looks at that second unit and says, you've got Jamal Murray who's going to lead it. You got a bunch of guys who can finish plays, but you have nobody else you can go to. So Jamal's usage is going to be through the roof in those minutes, the same way Bones's was, unless you give him a secondary creator. And Jeff Green's not a great player in this regard, but he is a guy that you can just throw the ball into the post and let him do something. And that just gives your star players a possession off every 4 or 5 possessions. I don't know if that's good logic. I think that the team in general gets significantly less in energy when he's on the court, but I think that's just the least the logic behind it.
I do want to state this because there's a lot of talk about this. Jeff Green and DAG need to be packaged together when they finally get shipped off, Danny says. I got to stress to you as somebody that's in the arena most nights, they're doing the stuff they bring to the team does matter.
And so much more than people realize. And
that's from the players themselves, but you can also watch it. If you're at the games from start to finish, pregame, warm-ups, shoot around, if you're at all these events, you're able to kind of see what these impacts are, and they are meaningful. And I know that you're if you're just well, I watch the games and they're terrible and I don't want them to play. I get it. This stuff really does matter in creating the right kind of vibe, and you need that if you're going to win a championship. There are a lot of extremely talented teams that did not have the right combination of personalities. It really matters. I got to stress how much that matters. And you can say, yeah, but they shouldn't play. I agree. That's what I'm advocating for here. Right. Is saying yeah, and I don't know that. But the problem there is I don't know if Jeff's at that point in his career. Jeff may be no, I can play. I want to play. I could still contribute, but they're in a tough spot right now because they have so many guys that honestly deserve minutes, and they don't have enough rotation minutes for all of them. Let's talk about Christian Braun, though. What did you see from Christian last night, and what did you think of his performance?
I thought he was incredible. I mean, he's the guy that stood out even more. I thought Vlatko was fantastic in the game, and he made his shots, which was huge. I mean, 3 of 4 from 3. But Christian Braun just is so impactful defensively. I just love his game. To me, I wanted to talk about these two guys, these two players, because to me, I feel more confident with them in the top 9 of the Denver Nuggets, or top 10, whatever it is, pretty firmly. This is not I waver, or I don't know, we'll see this. I just feel so good about it. And Christian Braun, to me, especially when you talk about a series where you have to be able to guard the perimeter, navigate screens, switch screens, read switches, multiple switches on one possession, he's just so good at it. So I was very impressed with him.
Just one foul, and that's usually a thing the Warriors are very good at, is getting guys off of balance and catching them unaware. So they either run through screens too hard and pick up fouls there, or they run into Steph trying to chase him, things like that. Thought he was very good in that capacity. 1 of 3 from 3. His shot percentage for the season is 34%. That's going to be kind of a little bit of a pressure mark, a little bit, is if we get into a playoff series and he looks good on defense, but he's not he's getting open looks and just goes 0-4, 0-5. That can really hurt you. But the same is true for anybody, right? If MPJ has a bad shooting night, with all the stuff that
it's more true. It's more true for him. Him, Aaron Gordon, Bruce Brown. Those are the guys who you count on them to keep you honest. And teams, especially when you get late into playoff series, have to pick their poison. I mean, what did Vlatko say last night? He had the best quote of the season at the podium. What do you contribute your efficient night to? Well, I was the worst player on the team, so they had to leave somebody open. This is what's going to happen with Christian Braun too, and Bruce Brown and Aaron Gordon. It's nice that they hit 34%, all of them, or better from their threes. But in a playoff series, teams are going to be when push comes to shove, we can't stop these other guys. So we just got to force the ball and hope they miss.
Yeah, that's accurate. Christian's pressure on Steph was very notable to me, that he was able to force the ball. He had those two steals in the backcourt. I just, in the third quarter, that kind of stuff is not normal. That kind of stuff is exceptional. That making those kind of plays. And Adam's been on this, and I think it's really important. The size is a really big component here. Christian's big, and Christian's having a long athletic defender really matters when you're trying to force, especially in this matchup, when you're trying to force turnovers versus a turnover heavy team, that is their biggest Achilles heel, is that they will turn the ball over if you're able to leverage them. And like there's just like a lot of ways that this really matters. One more thing, by the way, I do want to give credit to Jamal Murray because he was like, they did not put KCP on Steph a lot in the third. Jamal got that assignment for most of the night, and Jamal did a really good job of shadowing over screens. That's a punishing, hard, exhausting job, and Jamal did a really good job on it. So I want to kind of give him some credit on that.
I forgot this play right here. I almost forgot about, Matt, was an incredible one. Either the one where Christian Braun stole it from DiVincenzo off of full court pressure. You just don't see that very often.
Yeah.
Especially with veteran players. That just shows you how impactful he could be defensively.
Yeah, DiVincenzo is probably taking some grief in the
I like DiVincenzo a lot, though. I think he's a good player, but I kind of feel like Christian Braun's a similar mold player in a lot of ways. But the other note, and I say this all the time, DiVincenzo is 6'5", I think, and has like a good wingspan. And part of why you like him is he's like a defensive guard with length. Christian Braun dwarfed him last night. He looks so much huger than him.
Yeah. Let's take a break. We'll come back and we're going to get into all of the bone stuff. We got to talk about this. We'll talk about this until the deal is done. We'll talk about the bone situation as well as some other notes on the trade deadline when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. But first, I need to tell you about PrizePicks, which is daily fantasy made easy. Had myself a really good night with props on Wednesday on the NBA bet stream, and on PrizePicks had some good numbers there as well. Had Wiggins overs, liked him on that first night of the back-to-back. Interestingly, don't know that Wiggins is a good matchup versus Denver, but that's an interesting one to play for the most part. Wiggins is underrated usually in the market and on PrizePicks. At PrizePicks, you just pick 2 to 6 players, and if they'll score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, and you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. You're not competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections. They offer projections on any sport you watch: NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA, got golf starting to get going, college football, men's college basketball with March Madness starting next month, women's college basketball with the same, soccer, WNBA. How about them Liberty, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, all these sports and more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. They offer safe and fast withdrawals in over 30 states and Canada. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, all one word. You put in $100 and PrizePicks will match $100. If you put in $50, they'll give you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets, thanks for joining us and making us part of your day. Make sure you check out DMVR and the pre- and post-game shows before every Nuggets game, as well as their daily podcast, which is awesome and excellent. And the boys are a lot of fun. And support Adam because Adam's awesome. Okay, we'll start Bones. Bones gets a DNP-CD last night. Does not play even in garbage time. That's a massive indictment. After the game, this comment came from Jamal Murray. We're a championship team. Said there's no room for guys not buying into their roles. Singer goes on to answer a question. That was via Mike Singer. Somebody said, was he taking a jab at Bones in your opinion? And he says, no, I don't think it was a jab at Bones. I took his answer more broadly. Somebody also commented that Jamal and Bones were joking on the bench all game and that they doubt it was a jab. Mike says, this is also true. Jamal and Bones were sitting next to each other in the second half and joking most of the time. I don't think there's anything there. My view on the situation is that this is irreparable. I think the tone from the team seems to be such. A DNP-CD seems to be such. Bones's behavior on social media I was told that, like, he's unfollowing people on the Nuggets and that there's a bunch of stuff in there. Just like, it's very obvious about where his attitude is at. This seems irreparable. I do not think that this is a Malone versus Bones frustration. I think that the team itself is frustrated with him. This is a key component that I need to stress. Guys can be frustrated with a player in terms of the basketball stuff and not have it be personal. It can be
of course.
I don't think Bones is a bad guy. I don't think Bones is a jerk and I hate him. I don't think Bones is, and everybody wants everyone to get paid. Players will always protect every player's ability to get paid and take care of their families and their careers. But Jamal's right. This is a championship team. And that means that there are implications. And if Bones is at a place where he's chosen that, like, this is why I asked that question 2 weeks ago, and he said all the right things, but there was a but in there. Like, I don't know that playing for a championship team in the role that he's being asked to play is what he wants. I think he would love to play for a championship team in the role that he wants. And this is how a lot of guys feel, which is like, I can contribute to winning if you let me play the way that I need to. And he's not able to here for a number of reasons. And there's a lot of ways to look at that. But I also just think that this all kind of still points to it being irreparable. Jamal can be absolutely being honest, and he could be talking about Bones of like, you're going to have to accept your role because we're trying to win a championship here. It just is what it is. And it not be like a personal, or that he is affronted by Bones's approach. Both things can be true.
1,000%. It's exactly what it is. This is what's so funny is people like, was it a shot at Bones? This idea that he was like, it's like WWE or something. And listen here, brother, if Bones doesn't, like, it wasn't that. But if is he making a true statement about, look, Vlatko made the joke today. I was the worst one on the team. That's why I'm open. I know my job. I know that I'm there to fulfill that role. Christian Braun and how he plays. Like, guys, what Denver needs is they need guys that can fit into an already established identity and system and rotation and all those things. And so I don't think it was a knock on Bones is a bad guy, Bones is this or that, but I think it is indicative of where the team is. And like, hey, we're just looking for guys that can fit in. And he was speaking more broadly about the team. And I think even less saying calling out Bones was more crediting the other guys. But I don't think it's crazy to read or hear that quote in light of, the Bones situation. It's definitely a part of it.
Phoenix says, why is nobody acknowledging Haynes said Bones wants to be traded? We talked about it on the last show, Phoenix. That's where that.
No, here's the thing. I got to say this, Matt, because I've seen some of the commentary. It's so funny. Whenever trades happen, there's always people that will say, oh, it's the media that's cultivating this. And I saw like one of our quotes from our show, the last show we did, made its way onto Reddit, and somebody saying like, I can't believe it. The Locked On guys are getting so incendiary. No. This is happening. I don't know what you guys want to say. Like a week ago, the idea of trading Bones, people were like, I don't know, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Now I think everybody sees that it's more or less an inevitability. Guys, this is the situation, whether there's no like over exaggerating or anything else. Somebody asked, what's the odds he's going to get traded? I think it's extremely likely. Like it's to the point now where, and it has been, I think, for a while, where it's just like, yeah, matter of time. Denver knows this is what's happening. I liken it to the Nurkic situation. I think it's more like that than anything. It's not that Nurkic wasn't talented. It's not that Nurkic couldn't have worked in Denver. It's that it got to a point where it was clear it wasn't going to. And I just think that's where we're at with Bones.
And it becomes a distraction.
100%.
It becomes a distraction, and this team doesn't want to deal with that. And the other thing is like, it's like, well, isn't the culture, vibes, whatever, so good that you could handle it? Yeah, but you want to optimize everything. There are situations where you will accept pain, whether it's short-term or long-term, for your goals. Snail says that guy on Reddit was just twisting your words to push his anti-Malone agenda.
I'm telling you, it's true though. Like, this is the thing about Reddit in particular, is like, you can put a quote or an excerpt, or it wasn't even a quote. It was, they were basically saying, and it's like, hold on, man, listen to the pod. There's nothing that was incendiary in it, but.
And this gets into here's
and also nothing that's untrue. Like, everybody now sees that this is like, oh, is it because the media is making up a narrative? Would the team be trying to do this for a media narrative?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, clearly this is not a situation where there's smoke, no fire. It's like, hey guys, there's smoke everywhere. This seems like it's going to happen.
Well, here's the other thing. If you want to be like, well, Malone, he just doesn't like that style of player. Malone, like, I want to really stress this. Nobody backed him publicly more this season, early and often, than Malone. We would say, Bones is struggling. What's your message? And he would immediately go to, I feel for that kid because like he gets hurt and then he comes back and he has to settle in and then he gets COVID. Like, Malone made excuses for him. Malone constantly, and Malone played him. I need to stress this. Like, Malone played him even when he was awful. Because of like
15 plus minutes in a playoff series every single game. Like, that's a lot of minutes for a rookie.
Yeah.
For a playoff series.
Yeah. And so like, this is going to be a thing. And again, part of this is like, look, do I think that, do I value the idea of sacrificing for championship potential and promise? And do I value like the idea of knowing your role and fitting into it? Of course. I'm from the Midwest. Don't have hopes and dreams as part of my DNA. But like the bigger thing here is that I want to stress, like, Bones will look back on this differently in a few years, and Bones is going to have a career.
Folded.
Is going to be talented, and that's okay. What's going to be frustrated, and like I've come to peace with it, Adam, is like he's going to go somewhere else, and he's going to have a 30-point game, and then everybody's going to be like, blah, 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 blah.
I would not be surprised if he had a Nurkic-esque final 2 months of the season where there's a couple games sprinkled in there that look like the upside, where the upside shines, and you're like, my God, 30-something, like 8 threes, whatever it is, and it'll really pop. But I mean, that's the thing is, again, but I do like the point that you brought up that I do not think this is a Bones versus Malone situation. If it was, you would be hearing different commentary from the players, like sticking up, saying, we've seen this in the past. And by the way, there's a really, Harrison Wind had a really good report on the DNVR show last night. And that is, there's a very interesting contrast between Bones right now and Michael Porter right now. And he even said, Harrison Wind even said that he has heard that the team has rallied around Michael Porter in light of the Bones situation, meaning that there's been a very big, like, Porter used to be this guy. He was the young guy that maybe wanted outside the lines. And the degree to which he has bought in this year, the team is like rallied behind him to show support of like, dude, it's a big thing what you're doing and we all appreciate it. And the contrast perhaps to just a young player, again, no fault of his own, to Bones maybe provides even more opportunity to galvanize the team in that way.
I think it's really meaningful. I think, look, the first comment I ever heard about MPJ came from Paul Millsap, which is, I'm excited to see if he's as good as he keeps telling us he is. Right? Like, MPJ was definitely that guy. And there's a couple of things that kind of go into this, which is like, I really credit the Nuggets actually, because everybody's like, why did you give him that money? And it's like, if you didn't give him that money, he still plays with a chip on his shoulder trying to get there.
I think that's a big part of this.
Like the Nuggets genuinely were like, we're going to pay you this because you're this talented and you're this gifted. And we think that you can help us win a championship.
And to be fair to Bones, he might be buying in a lot better if he had a max contract behind him. Like he's trying to get a max. He's trying to get the money right now.
Yeah. And like but also part of this is like, look, MPJ was like a top 5 prospect that had back surgeries. This is kind of where I keep getting to is like, Bones is not this is not Jalen Green, who actually I think their games are similar to.
I was going to say.
Like, I think their games are similar with their shot selection. But like Jalen Green was the number 2 pick for a reason, and Bones was drafted where he was for a reason. Now you can overperform that. Jokic was a second rounder, right? But all of this kind of gets to, I'm not going to make this into like a personal thing with Bones. Like, I don't think that it's not. It's just a matter of he got to make his choice about whether or not he wanted to like fit in, really commit himself, and understand like, hey, there's going to be consequences if you're not playing well. And he wasn't willing to, and he's frustrated. And he wants a different situation.
I'm gonna put one caveat in there. Wasn't willing to, I definitely think is part of this, but also part of this is just he's young, man. Maybe he was incapable of it. Like, it's easy for Christian Braun to fit in. Christian Braun doesn't have a handle like Bones. He doesn't have a step back like Bones. You can't laud Christian Braun for not taking step back 30-footers. That's not in his arsenal. It is in Bones's. So part of this is, yes, incapable, or unwilling, but I think some of this is just also the skill set, man.
Let's talk about this from Nemanja, who always has a complaint. Locked On Nuggets. How is Golden State Warriors able to develop Jordan Poole into a 6-man and the Nuggets can't? Do you want to know how? They spent 2 years essentially tanking and let Jordan Poole just get reps.
I agree, man. I think about this a lot. Bones got 1 year. If this was a second throwaway year, first of all, it would have sucked for Nuggets. But I do think that that runway maybe is the right amount. And by the way, Jordan Poole halfway through the year last year was dividing Warriors fans. They were like, I don't know, man. This guy's good sometimes, but we have a short window with Steph. So, and then this year, by the way, as well, like Warriors fans, even now, I think because they won a championship with a guy, you get a longer leash or this or that. But even this year, there's a lot of Jordan Poole's ruining it. I mean, Steph Curry got kicked out of a game. He was so mad at Jordan Poole.
That's true. That's accurate.
This is year 4.
That's accurate. I forgot that. That's very good.
Draymond Green punched him in the face. Like, this idea that it's like
Yeah.
Oh, things over there is just kumbaya. Like, man, that's on a razor's edge for the Warriors.
I forgot about the punching incident. Snail says Poole was sent to the G League and he didn't complain. Bones is getting benched for a bit and he's demanding trades. Accurate. Poole did his time, man. Like, and Jordan got paid. That's part of it too. Is like Jordan got paid.
The last thing I'll say is that the Warriors have the number one defense in the NBA, or did have historically.
Yeah.
What their needs are different than Denver's needs in that capacity.
That's accurate. I will go ahead and put some names. Somebody mentioned in the comment it's out there, but I'll go ahead and mention that I've heard Chris Duarte as a potential landing spot. I think that that's a possibility for Denver. Aaron Nesmith is another name that I would throw on that. Terrence Mann. Caruso is a name that's been thrown around. I don't think that they'll be able to get Caruso. I don't even know if the Bulls are going to move him. I haven't heard anything on Caruso in like 2.5 weeks. I kind of think the Bulls are probably like, I think getting equal return for Caruso is impossible given his contract value to everyone wants him because he's this affordable player that's hugely impactful. If they got him, that'd be a coup. I think it's really difficult. And I don't know what they'd have to give up to get him. It's not going to be like the Bulls are not doing Bones Hyland and Zeke with a first rounder for Caruso. That's not going to work.
Here's how I look at it. The Nuggets have 5 starters who are not, their minutes are what they are. You're not changing that. Off the bench, you have Bruce Brown. You're not changing his minutes. Who else off the bench are you not willing to trade their minutes for? Because to me, Christian Braun, if you made a trade that brought someone in that competed with him for minutes, I think it would be a mistake. I think he's a guy you should be able to count on. Are you staggering Jamal? So does that mean now you have your 1, 2, 3 sorted out? So what are you looking for? A 4, a 5? Do you bring in somebody who's if it was Alex Caruso, yes. Okay, Christian Braun, sorry, you're going to have to move out of position or do this or that. But if it was, a player like, just throwing a name out there, a Cody Martin, a really good defensive player who's not a great offensive player, does he just replace Christian Braun?
Yeah.
And then what are we doing? I mean, they're kind of equal to me, or they're close to equal. Cody just has more reps under his belt, so he's the veteran of it.
I agree.
So that's where I think some of this gets a little hard when we start throwing out names. Is I like Bruce Brown and Christian Braun off the bench. I have question marks about Zeke, Vlatko, and Jeff more than I do about those two.
You need to not replicate. Well, I will say this: that Martin's been playing a little bit of 4 this year, so he might be able to get away with it, right? Like Martin takes the Jeff Green. Like Martin's an upgrade on Jeff and Vlatko. Man,
that's so small. It could be. I mean, look, it could be. I do think you start to get into a point where you're giving Malone tough decisions every single night. Rather than just develop an identity, you just start having decisions.
Jim B asked about Alec Burks. I will tell you, this can change. This is a lot of it is like you hear stuff and then it's like, oh, they changed their mind. My best understanding of the situation is I actually don't think Detroit trades anybody. I think Detroit, somebody that knows Weaver really well told me this, is like, what does he need to trade? Does he need to get worse? They're already going to have a bottom 5 pick. Right. They're getting Cade Cunningham next year and this pick. They're going to be fine, and they'll have veterans in place to help them. Why do they need to do anything? There's no reason to do anything. They're on the exact path they want. They're developing the young guys. The veterans are there to help them. The veterans are getting their point totals, etc. And it's just very I don't think Burks gets moved. I don't think that Bogdanovich gets moved. I think that the Pistons probably wait. So
we'll see, man. I have a feeling some teams are going to. Here's my bigger fear for Denver. I think their move. I would not be surprised if Bones nets you a pick, and that's what it is. Let's all wait and see what that pick is. I think that ends up being the move, and I'm fine with it. The question I have is OG Anunoby could go somewhere that could wreck Denver. Alex Caruso could go somewhere that wrecks Denver. There's a couple players that if Memphis or Phoenix or Portland were to pick them up, I would go, that's concerning.
I just want to. I don't think that you can. So there was a report out of Hain. Hain said that both, this is very obviously Raptors leaked, that both the Pelicans and Grizzlies were like, we don't want the Pelicans to get OG, and the Pelicans were like, we don't want Memphis to get OG. I just think you get into a real danger if you're like, well, we need to trade for him because somebody else does. Don't ever do that. That's a bad idea. Can I just say, do I think OG is better than Kentavious Caldwell-Pope? Sure. Do I think that OG is better?
They're the same to me. To me, the thing is that it's the same. He fulfills the same role. In a different position.
I wouldn't. There's no room for OG on this team. And I guess here's my thing. always try and get better, but like what you have is so good. Like it works.
Yeah.
You know it works. And you can be like, well, but OG, the skill, but this works. And sometimes there's a lot of talented teams that don't work together. And like everybody gets what they're supposed to do here. You know? Like, look, I've thought about this one. I don't think it's this is speculative. This is not based on reporting. I don't think it's crazy to think the Warriors might try and put something together for OG. That seems like a very Warriors move.
I don't think Denver. I would be shocked if Denver. I wasn't even mentioning this for Denver. I was more just saying the teams like Portland, Phoenix, Memphis, New Orleans. If they ended up, there are moves that can be made there that I would go. Right now, I don't fear Portland. I think Denver beats Portland 9 out of 10 times, if not more. But if they were to make a trade that made them just a little bit more difficult for Denver, that's where I'd go. Okay, they have some like Dame has put 50 on the Nuggets repeatedly. He's gonna score.
Yep.
Nurkic right now, I know he's hurt. I don't know that he'll get traded, but if there was just a trade where they got rid of him and brought in a defensive player who just is a more challenging matchup for Denver, or if they got more versatile to where we're just going to outscore them because they're not going to guard us, it might change the calculus just a little bit.
There is some good news on the trade front, which is it sounds a lot like Dallas. Dallas kicked a bunch of different tires, and it sounds like they haven't come up with anything. So it seems like McMahon kind of reported that if they're going to do anything, it's going to be on the margins, and that's in line with what I've heard, which is like they tried some things. They've tried pushing Dorian Finney-Smith as an option to try and get upgrades, and there's just not a lot of appetite. It doesn't sound like Dallas is going to be able to get an upgrade, which I think is honestly pretty significant because that's still the matchup that I'm most concerned about. Portland, ultimately, I'm just like they're never going to be able to defend Denver at a high enough
level.
Right
now, but that's why I'm saying we'll see if they end up making the move. I don't know what that move is like, but we'll see. Like if they got a Pascal Siakam or something and they just punted on guarding Denver, but they became so impossible for Denver to guard too. Like, I don't know. There's stuff like that.
Here's this one. This roster isn't complete to go all the way. By what measure are you possibly considered? Like, I have no idea what it is that you're seeing here, sir, that would lead you to believe that. Their starters.
The starters, I mean, there's no question.
Who can play 42 minutes in a game 6 are dominant. Dominant. Arguably the best in the league. They're better than Boston.
It's only them or the Warriors.
Warriors. That's it. And the Warriors don't even play the
Phoenix as well. Phoenix hasn't played with their starting five, but for like 10 minutes this year.
Yeah, that's true. So, I'm trying to think what else is out there. Again, don't think Naz Reid's going to be a thing. Crazy Case says the bench, sir. Yeah, the bench that plays about 8 minutes in the playoffs. Thanks for joining us. Denny Avdia is actually, that was an interesting one because I've heard that he's gettable. There's been this idea that they traded Rui to make more room for Denny, but I hear that Denny's still available too. So that's like another one that I think is like an interesting idea.
The only way, by the way, you solve the issue I was talking about, Braun is if you got a point forward somehow. Those usually aren't on the trade block, but if you were to pick up somebody that could handle the ball, a Joe Ingles type. I don't see it happening, but that's the one scenario.
Igor's like, we're still doing the Phoenix thing. Yes, man. I'm with him on this. Phoenix is good. They haven't
played. They haven't played, man. We just did this with Denver last year where people are like, is Denver actually good? And it's like, well, when they have their players, yes. Like, chill, everything else.
Turns out if you have Devin Booker, you're a much better
and Cam Johnson. They have not played. I think they played 7 games together or something like that, and they were the number 1 lineup over those 7 games. They're I don't know if they're as good as they have been in years past. We'll have to wait and see. Chris Paul will have to see. But the idea that they're not like elite is insane to me. And by the way, they're almost certainly making trades at the trade deadline.
Yeah.
There's a reason they are hurrying up the sale to be done the day before the trade deadline.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's get wrap it up for Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Glad you guys were able to get the show in. We'll be back after the next Nuggets game with a recap. Until then, have yourselves a great weekend. Enjoy the beautiful Colorado weather as it's 30 degrees and snowing every day. Hope you guys have a great weekend. If there is a trade, we will do an emergency pod to get your reaction on that. Hit us up on Twitter at Locked On Nuggets.
I predict it happens. I usually say this happens at the trade deadline, like on Thursday. I'm going to predict Monday.
Woo! Okay. I'll get the shell ready for the Nuggets trade that will be happening. We'll see if Adam's prediction comes through. Until then, hope you guys have a great weekend. We'll talk to you guys again next time on Locked On Nuggets.